And then fishes have a streamlined body and the lateral sense or organs that are present, which helps in detecting pressure, detecting the area or the depth of the particular fish where it is present, and at the same time the amount of oxygen. All of it again is what do you call it detected by the different kinds of specialized sense organs. Then the skin is again having mucus glands, and then you have slime that is being secreted, and then you have the secondary aquatic adaptations as well, which include the streamlined body, as you can already see. And then you have the enlargement of size in the case of whale, and you have adipose tissue that is present, and all the aquatic animals are present inside the water, so they are submerged. So that case in scenario, you have huge or massive lungs, nostrils, and you have other kind of adaptations. And then you have no neck, literally. So the cervical vertebrae in the case of whale, which is an aquatic mammal, is fused together. And disappearance of any kind of external organ, such as the ear, the ears, that is external ears, that is pinnae, and then reduction of them, and then you don't have a proper nose as such, you have a snout or only nostrils that are present. And water also is the eyes are also adapted to the water. Then you have locomotory paddles, which are also the fins basically. And then there is minimal amount of hair or skin glands that are present. And then you have a mouth armament in certain kind of fishes and whales. And the skull is also modified to withstand the huge amounts of pressure. So vertebral column is also simplified, in fact. And then, the bones are aquatic, that is, they are light and spongy. And in the case of whales, filled with oil. Volant adaptation is wherein, volant means flying. So whatever animal is related to the flying, these kind of general adaptations are seen. You have pneumatic bones, that is, the bones are filled with air in the middle, hollow. So you have a passive or gliding type of flight wherein you have no propulsion other than the initial torque or force that is given at the time. Then later, according to the air speed and the wind that a bird is in, it just starts gliding. So there is no force or energy, extra energy applied by the animals. And then you have development of a patagium or a patagia, which is a wing, which is a fold or series of skin basically, which is present between the forelimbs and the hind limbs. So it is like a fan. This helps in gliding basically. So I have seen in tychozoon and flying snakes. And then you have enlargement and insertion of the pectoral fins in the case of fishes. That is, exocetus is a fish which usually flies. There's a short duration out of which it comes out of the sea, then goes back into the water again. So in this case, the pelvic fins are smaller in size and tail is longer, helping in leaping. And then you have webbed feet in the case of flying frogs. And you have adhesive pads also. And then you have something which is known as the active or the true flight, wherein the wings, which are adaptation of the hands basically, help in the animal to fly. This is seen in the case of insects, pterodactyls, birds, and the mammal, that is bats. And nature and structure of wings are different, and they're all analogous. In fact, that is, they might be adapted from different origin, but their function is the same. That is, they all help in flight. So again, you have different kinds of wings over here. Insects' wings having this is affected by flapping. They keep flapping, and so the dorsolateral side of the meso and the metathoracic segments develop into wings. And you have the bat wing, wherein the humerus and the radio ulna, which are the bones in the hands usually, are modified. So humerus is developed. Radius and ulna is ulna is vestigial, whereas the radial bone is basically long and curved. Pollex, that is a thumb, is free and clawed for crawling and climbing. So you have pterodactyl wings wherein the radius and the ulnar bones that are present are almost equal. And you have again different kinds of adaptations in the carpels and the metacarpals present. And when it comes to the bird's wings, modified into flight structure, for all that you know, metacarpals are three, and then the digits are represented by one or two phalanges, and all the wings are specialized. So this is used for two kinds of movement, which is upward pushing, that is the lifting of the bird, and then the downward pull, that is the drag. So birds have this kind of concave structure so that you know they are able to adapt, or they are able to fly in the air current. Please excuse me for a. So there's this upward pushing or lifting on the downward pull or the drag. And different kinds of adaptations are there. That is the body shape, which is spindle shaped or boat shaped, so that you don't have a lot of air resistant. Then you have the pointed beak. Neck is long, mobile. Wings are attached high from the thorax, in fact. And then you have feathers, which is the exoskeleton of the birds. So these feathers are actually again are of four types: quill feathers, contour feathers, down feathers, and feather plumes. And they all help in like you know the flight basically, and protection of the bird's body from the wind basically. And finally, the presence of wing. That is, the forelimbs are modified into wings and the hind limbs are large, which can be used for different kinds of just terrestrial purposes like walking, running, whatever for that matter. And then you have pneumatic bones, that is hollow and air-filled bones having a lot of air cavities which add buoyancy or the floating or like you know kind of principle for the flight. And you have different kinds of flight muscles and the keeled sternum that is present, and raised pectoralis minor, which is the tendon, and the sternum or the breastbone is very well developed. And you have air sacs also, which help in respiration and buoyancy of the body, and also help in sorry, in internal perspiration, so that there is a regulation of body temperature, because the birds are all homeotherms. They need to regulate their body temperature. And also you have brain and sense organ which is involved, that is the cerebrum. And like you know, see, the cerebrum is the part of the brain which helps or provides the balance in the body. So this is extremely developed, and there is you know good development of optic lobes also, and the olfactory lobes are a little reduced. So these are all the different kinds of like you know the physiological adaptations that is present. The eyes of the birds are large, depending upon, and you know they are able to resist the different kinds of air pressure, because pressure changes once you go either at a higher altitude or deep into the water. So both volant and aquatic adaptation is one, which is ability to withstand immense pressure. So that can be seen. And then, you know, when it comes to the beak is adapted in the form that it is horny and there is no presence of teeth basically. And you have long and flexible necks. And You have only one single functional ovary on the left side. This is because this is there to reduce the weight of the bird. So, this when it is lighter, in fact, it is able to fly for a larger distance and at a higher level. And there is no urinary bladder. So, different kinds of organs are either very much vestigial or, in the sense, they are reduced.
House number ಅಂತ.
So there is no urinary bladder, and whatever excreta is coming out is in the form of insoluble uric acid. So these are the features which help in the reduction of the body weight. We have seen the desert adaptations. Now we'll just have a look at it. So desert animals, they're also known as xeroseals, have different kinds of adaptation. Now desert environment, we only have one particular problem, which is we do not have water. So whatever kind of adaptation the animal has to take care of is, I want, or the animal wants, maximum amount of water to be stored or retained inside the body, and at the same time it should lose the minimal amount of water out of the body in the form of waste, and at the same time different kinds of adaptations to withstand the desert conditions, that is high extreme heat, extreme cold and dry conditions. So let us just have a look at it. So they use the deep groundwater. So xerophytes are the plants that have very good adaptations, in fact, have very good exploring horizontally spreading roots. Bullock horridus is a sand lizard, has a hygroscopic skin, so it can absorb the moisture in the air, whatever amount of moisture is there. And every animal in the desert usually has only one very good adaptation, which is water conservation. So they try to conserve the water. So to avoid the water loss, they have the horned toad, which is Phrynoderma, has hard, rough skin. Uromastics can store large amounts of water in the intestines. So every desert mammal has a thicker skin, reduced number of sweat glands, wax proof. So some of the desert animals or insects have wax coating on the top, so that they are having very less amount of water or moisture going out of the skin, and they remain in the burrows during the daytime. So they are all nocturnal creatures, most of them. And certain animals plug the mouth of the burrows during the daytime also, so that there is a certain amount of protection present. Self-defense against the scorching sun. So that's what burrow digging reptiles have noses that are directed upward instead of forward. Nostrils are also either having, some kind of protection. Eyes are having a sheath protection again. Mabuya, you have lower lip enlarged with transparent window. Then ear opening is very small or having fringes or scales. And venom should be there so as to it is another desert adaptation. And the gazelle resembles the general coloring of the landscape, that is it has a certain amount of camouflage against itself. So this is all about the desert adaptations that you can see, coloration, behavior. And then you can see that the because of the sand and the dust and air, nostrils are protected by valves, scales, fringes, eyelids, all of these. And possession of venom is for self-defense, and almost all the desert snakes, spiders are all having poisonous venom within themselves. And the protective adaptations are again such as slippery surface, having horns, spines. Some of them have an unpleasant odor around them. They have hard shells, and autotomy, that is self. Every lizard almost has this particular adaptation, that is when it is having some kind of danger that is it is facing, it cuts its tail, so that there is that is one kind of autotomy or protection. And then blending, that is camouflage. So these are the different kinds of adaptations that are present. At the same time, you have different kinds of what do you call it, protective adaptations, wherein they start mimicking other organism for the purpose of defense again and for protecting themselves. That is known as protective mimicry. And you have something known as the aggressive mimicry also, wherein the predator mimics the organism favored by the prey so that it can trap the prey. So African lizard resembles like a flower. So spider also resembles like the flower of an orchid, like that basically. So whenever the insect comes, then it is the prey which actually gets attracted to the flower and comes, but then it turns out to be an the lizard or the spider for that matter. So you have protective mimicry and the aggressive mimicry also to consider. Now let us just have summarize this. So you see that all organisms face different kinds of environmental challenges that are present. So they have some kind of adaptations so as to develop, which are developed according to the conditions that they live in. So then the structural adaptations are the physical features that are present, such as the shape, then body covering, in fact, and the internal organization. Behavioral adaptations is basically the instincts that are developed, such as which are favorable for food, mating, vocalization. You have physiological adaptations that help in performing special functions. So these physiological adaptations include, presence of a slime layer, presence of the venom, etc. So all this gives the animal a capacity to live in a particular environment for that matter. And aquatic adaptations found in plants and animals that are there in the water habitats. So based on the whether animals are there in fresh water or brackish water or sea water, you have different kinds of adaptations. Terrestrial adaptations also is exhibited by those which are present in different kinds of land habitats. So and then you have the in the terrestrial adaptation itself, fossorial, arboreal, that is burrowing. Then you have tree dwelling adaptations, desert adaptations, protective, and cursorial, those with that live on the grassland. Volant adaptation include those wherein that is suitable for flying. So this is all about your ecological adaptations for that matter. Now I will start with conservation, wildlife conservation, national parks and sanctuaries of India. Let me just share the screen again. So when it comes to wildlife conservation, we get to know what exactly wildlife means and why is wildlife important to the ecosystem, and at the same time, what are the different kinds of wildlife conservation acts? How is it beneficial to us? What exactly is are the steps for conservation of wildlife? At the same time, their benefits, and what are the different kinds of national parks and sanctuaries that are present in our country. So we'll just have a look at it quickly. So according to this Wildlife Protection Act, any animal, any insect, fish, that is any aquatic insect and present which forms the part of any habitat is known as the wildlife. So it refers to the living organisms, both plants and animals, so flora and fauna in their natural habitats. So examples are the lion, deer, crocodiles, etc. present in the deer lake. So you have different kinds of acts and the population that has been mentioned in your textbook. You can just have a look at it and read. They have given you about the different kinds of tiger population that was there earlier, and right now how much is it present, and the different kinds of deer present in Kashmir, Madhya Pradesh. What are the endangered species? Antelopes and black bucks, all of this, where exactly they are present. So again, all of these, which are the producers, consumers, and decomposers, are linked to the food chain and in the ecosystem as such. So when it comes to the benefits, we get a lot of what do you call it, substances, food, and at the same time from the wildlife basically. So it is an essential component of different kinds of biogeochemical cycles, energy flow is there through various trophic levels, and it helps in the protection and the health of the environment and the stability to different ecosystems that are present. So this is there. And then why is it important when it comes to that? We get to see that it's got an ecological significance because of the interlocking in the food web. At the same time, if any of these, the either the herbivores are removed or the producers are removed, there will be an because of which this invites a lot of problem to the ecosystem directly. And when it comes to the economic importance of the wildlife, we get to see that horns, tusks of wild animals are very um, are of great or a very huge importance basically. And then fish is the basic source of living food for different kinds of countries. India exports tiger prawns. And then you have rhinoceros. The dead Indian rhinoceros actually costs around 4 in the international market, in fact. So again, you have a convention on that, which is International Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wildlife, Wild Fauna and Flora, wherein you can have a legal transaction because it is illegal to do any kind of trading on certain endangered species. When it comes to the genetic stock, you can just have a look at your into your book, page number 83. So they help in acting as the gene bank, wherein you go there into a one particular area and you're going to get the whole lot of whatever amount of a genetic pool that is there. So then you have see, for example, right now we have imported cheetahs from Africa because the Indian cheetah is extinct completely. So now we are trying to what with whatever amount of gene from the gene bank is there. The Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, that is CCMB in Tarnaka, is actually trying to build the cheetah gene pool so as to see that it is again produced through genetic engineering if it's possible. Then you have the game value, hunting, fishing, horse racing, which is unfortunately not very useful for the uh, like you know uh, for the environment basically, in the sense that we get to have pleasure, but at the same time it's at the cost of that particular animal. Investigatory importance is you do a lot of scientific experiments on different kinds of animals that are there. So animal models, right from mouse models that have been developed in different places, you use chimpanzees, monkeys, rabbits, dogs, all of this for either aesthetic purposes or for research purposes, wherein they are the they're tested. And then you have aesthetic importance, that is this wildlife, whatever is there, is used as a source of inspiration for different kinds of people who have an artistic temperament. Scientific value, again, you have a lot of subjects or branches and research that is going on in botany, zoology, psychology, animal behavior for that matter, different kinds of forest products that are available, and how can we manage forests without cutting off trees, and how to do timber management. Urban forestry program is going on. How is it possible for us to actually obtain wood, or something which is similar to wood without cutting the trees, in fact. So there's a lot of research going on in this particular area. And when it comes to the educational importance, we have to understand that there is a lot of say study, you can learn a lot when you go for any kind of botanical tour for that matter, wildlife studies, or there's any kind of sanctuaries and scientific tours and local tourist visits also. You get to learn the flora and the fauna of that particular area. And then you have different kinds of job opportunities also. If you just go into the your Indian government portals or your state government portals, you get to see that you have different kinds of job opportunities such as forest range officer, beat officer, curators, researchers, and agricultural officers, and in forest department, wildlife department, etc. Then, so when it comes to the importance of wildlife conservation, we have to see that what is harming the wildlife in the first place. So, habitat loss because of population growth, industrialization, urbanization, all of this you already know, and indiscriminate hunting. You go
Excuse me,
for
ma'am.
hunting, yes.
Ma'am, what is aesthetic importance? Can you tell me?
Aesthetic importance is, see, for example, if there are a lot of people who are into art, so they draw inspiration. If you go at sometime like around 6 o'clock and you actually just go sit at a place at the banks of a lake, for example, I hope you're from Hyderabad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you go and sit near Durgam Cheru at around 6 o'clock in the evening, it is very calm. And it is very nice to look at with the setting sun and the birds coming out. And it looks very nice and you feel very calm and peaceful, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That is the meaning of aesthetic importance, wherein the people such as poets, artists, all of them, they kind of draw inspiration, and they are able to, like, attain a little bit of peace, go away from certain stress and tension that is there all over, always with us. So
Yes.
this is what, okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So when it comes to the threats, you have also in introduction of different kinds of species that are present, and the species which is like local to that area or native to that area is disappearing. At the same time, different species are coming into their place. And pollution, of course, air, water, soil, noise. All of this is a big problem for the wildlife. I need not go into details because it is already there. So how and again they have just like given the importance of wildlife conservation, where it is their beauty, economic value, because you're going to get different kinds of timber, fur, wood, ivory, leather, you name it, you're going to get from the wildlife. Scientific value, again gene pool for breeding programs, so that you get better animals that can be obtained. And ecological balance has to be maintained, and ecotourism, like I told you, if you go for a nature tour or botanical tour or scientific tour and local visits, if you just go, you learn a lot about the wildlife, and you know how to conserve that particular area as per that how it should be done. When it comes to the habitat loss, again, you can get to see that rainforests are where you have a lot of wildlife present. So whenever you're chopping down the forests, there is, the habitat losses taking place. So it is the most, after like species extinction, second most important or critical factor which is actually causing a lot of destruction. So that is one thing. And then you have poaching and hunting, which is totally illegal. The horn of the rhinoceros is actually removed from the rhinoceros, because of which it is actually going to die. The horn has a lot of value, no doubt about it. You're going to get a lot of money, but at the same time, at the cost of the life of that animal. So poaching is totally illegal. At the same time, you have a lot of, for example, over here, olive ridley turtles are taken and then sold either for food purpose or for any kind of for them to actually be growing as pets, which is totally illegal. So, and then skins of the tiger, then shooting, like I already told you, these are the different kinds of destruction of the causes for wildlife destruction. And pollution, climate change, all of this also affects, because of which there is an unbalance or an imbalance in the food chain. If the producers or the primary consumers are removed, the secondary, tertiary consumers or the quaternary consumers are totally affected. So this plays an important role and affects the biodiversity, because of which there is a loss in the economy as well. At the same time, end of the day, even we are endangered. So these are the endangered species that are there. So when it comes to the importance of wildlife conservation also, we'll just see that the protection of the biodiversity, which is, you have different species should be connected through the food webs. And then, sustenance of agricultural activities. So if at all wildlife is being conserved properly, agriculture also in certain areas only, if it is done, there is always a balance that can be obtained. So again, if you say wildlife, wild plants, they are different. They have a genetic, they are genetically different from the plants that have been grown indigenously in a particular area, which is cultivated. Because of which, if the wild plant turns out to be much more productive, when we conserve it, we can use it for economical growth also. And then motivation for research, that is 50% of the drugs that are there basically are developed from plants, and they are like an plant or animal origin and microbial origin, because of which we have a lot of scope and potential to develop better life-saving drugs. And eco-services economics is also being facilitated, wherein, for example, see, turkeys are endangered in the US, at least the wild ones. So they are domesticating it so as to, for especially during Thanksgiving, it will not exactly cause a loss for the wildlife. Instead, the domesticated turkeys are used. That is one example. And then at the same time, good quality of fresh water and that is available should be improved, so that we can sustain our life later, say 30 to 40 years down the line. So you need this kind of integrated efforts to take place so as to preserve or conserve our wildlife. And you have ecotourism, so you have African safaris basically, wherein you get to go there, try to do your bit in conserving the nature. At the same time, they are you get to see how it is in the wildlife. So there's a lot of difference between an animal in the zoo and an animal if it is free in a forest. So how to and that gives a boost for us also, and see that we treat the animals and the nature reverently. So we have already seen the causes of wildlife depletion. These are the different kinds of endangered animals that are present for us, and these are the endangered plants: boa plant, berberries, then Decalipis hamiltoni, cycas species, and red sanders. And what is it that legally people are doing for at least conservation of wildlife in India? So various types of legislation is there, wherein you have different kinds of Wildlife Protection Act in 1972, then you have 1986, then you have the Biodiversity Act in 2002, Fisheries Act, Forest Conservation Act. All of these have been introduced so as to protect the different kinds of wildlife areas. So you have prohibition of hunting, management of wildlife habitats, declaration of the different kinds of sanctuaries, wherein, and then how you have the declaration of the national parks, in fact, and establishment of the protected areas, regulation of trade in those areas. And then you have a central authority which is taking which is actually taking care of all of these, in fact, and power of the central government to declare a particular area as a sanctuary or a national park, and whether it is closed. So you have in any kind of legislation for that matter, whenever you have a protected area or a reserve, they are the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, conservation reserves, and community reserves. Apart from this, you have the procedures for state government also to appoint certain areas under the wildlife authority and board, and which is being regulated, and all the products that are coming from there are subjected to scrutiny, so as to prevent, detect, and punish the violations if any kind is happening. So you have different kinds of parks. So we'll just have a look at it in the first place. But before that, let us have just like look at it. So in any sanctuary or national park, you have three kind of zones that are there. That is the core zone, buffer zone, and the core zone, intermediary zone, and the buffer zone. Core zone is the area which is like right in the middle of that particular wildlife park or sanctuary for that matter, wherein you cannot enter except with special purposes. That is only purpose of research. Intermediary zone is where it's a grazing zone. You have visitors also allowed there. And buffer zone is where tourism is allowed. So apart from this, nobody is allowed to go into the core zone except for research purposes and nothing else. And you need special permission from both the state and the central governments. And what are the different kinds of steps for conservation of wildlife? You have the habitat management, you have establishment of the protected areas that is taking place, then rehabilitation of the endangered species that is taking place, and then you have different kinds of captive breeding programs wherein if at all survival of that particular animal is threatened in the wild area, it is taken or it is captured, it is bred in a captivated area and then exposed back to the wildlife area again. So you can do that. A breeding is successfully done in different zoos in India. And at the same time, these animals that have been captured in the wildlife, bred in the zoos, are trained in such a manner that they are able to capture their own prey when they are exposed to or when they are left in the wild area outside again. So that is also there. They should have that defense from the different kinds of predators, and they should be able to adapt themselves to the natural conditions that are present. And then you have to educate people. So you have mass education, you have World Wildlife Day, which is there on the 3rd March, in fact, and you have different kinds of film shows, media, which is, and essay competitions, journals, books, all of which help us get more awareness regarding the wildlife conservation and protection. And adopting. You can, I do not know how many of you have gone to the zoo that is there in the Nehru Zoological Park. Over there, the animals are adopted. That is for the food and for the protection of that particular animal, a person can actually donate some amount every year so that that animal is taken care of. So this is known as adaptation. And this, should be transparent. And so the government is also trying to propose transparent schemes so as to improve the relationship between the animals and the human beings, that is us. And if you're passionate about all of this, please, you have to speak up, talk about, and try to help create awareness amongst your friends and family. And then whatever you're buying, please buy responsibly. Just because you like a peacock feather earring for that matter, or a peacock feather something like, you just go and buy, your actually, that was plucked from the peacock after harming it. For example, I'm like kind of telling you, there are only very few feathers of the peacock that are actually falling over. Otherwise, whatever feathers that are obtained is usually causing harm to the animal and getting it. Ivory products, and then you have the different kinds of what do you call it, shells, trunk, whatever it is for that matter. If it is like purchasing them from an endangered animal is not exactly very responsible on our part, because we are encouraging the wildlife trafficking that is going on. And then you have to try to help conserve by even trying not to pollute, trying not to what do you call it, trying to reduce your carbon footsteps for that matter. And then you have to try to restore the forestation. You can just do your part by planting trees. So, and then join these particular organizations which help in prevention of trafficking. So this is all about the different kinds of wildlife protection acts. You have the national parks now. So around 166 national parks are there as of today. In your book, it is given as 166, so I'm just going along with it. And then in 1970, there was only 105. And now in 1972, Project Tiger came up. And then we have quite a few national parks right now. And then totally around 543 wildlife or animal sanctuaries in India. So this was April 2017. And there is a difference after 2017, and in these 5 years, another 50 were added, almost 50. 50 to, 50 change, or 60 change, 63 national parks were added. And Jim Corbett National Park was the first national park in India. So it is there in Uttarakhand. So you can just have a look at it. Let me see if at all I have got another National Parks of India presentation. I had downloaded that as well. National Parks of India, if it's possible. Anyway, I think I will just go along with this, right? So in your textbook, you can just have a look at it. Anamudi Shola National Park, and then you have the different kinds of the states where it is present, when it was established, and the area that is present in. So, and you have different kinds of animals that are present. For example, in the Bandipur National Park in Karnataka, you have the chital, the Bengal tiger, grey langurs, different kinds of animals that are present. And then you have different kinds of animals that are either endangered or critically endangered. Endangered means the population is a little less. Critically endangered means population is very less, wherein if they are not protected at all, they will become extinct. And vulnerable is wherein, those populations which are there, but they are subjected to different kinds of, if at all, their population goes down, then they become endangered. And so you have, like I said, in your textbook, you can just have a look at it. Different kind, I think all of them have been mentioned over here. Right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari to, what do you call it? The Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So you have in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, you have the Mahatma Gandhi Marine National Park, you have the Middle Button Island National Park, Mount Harriet National Park. So you have different kinds of national parks in Andaman and Nicobar Islands as well. So in total, different kinds of animals, different kinds of and what their status is also being given. When it comes to the wildlife sanctuary, it is a protected area, and there are around 543 wildlife sanctuaries, which is known as category 4 protected areas. In fact, 50 tiger reserves as per the project, as governed by the project Tiger, is present. And you have around 43 conservation reserves, 4 community reserves that are present. And you have one bird sanctuary, which is the Kialadio National Park, which before attaining the national park status. And many parks are also known according to the animals that are there. For example, in Rajasthan, you have a Javai leopard sanctuary. Because of the presence of that, it is known as a Javai leopard sanctuary. And conservative measures have been taken by the Indian government, because of which there was an increase of tiger population by nearly 30%. In the year 2012, probably around only 1600 tigers were there in India. But right now you have more than that, which is a very good initiative by the government. And as you can see, different kinds of wildlife sanctuaries have been given in your textbook as well. You can see the right from where it has been established, the year and the state that is therein, and the name of the sanctuary. So all of these wildlife sanctuaries have been mentioned in the textbook. You can just have a look at it. And here, if you see the definition, you can see that it is a protected area of land. It can be wetland or sea also, reserved for conservation of the wild animals, birds and plants that are present. And hunting is completely prohibited in these sanctuaries. Private ownership
Ma'am,
can be, yes,
IUCN full form.
International Union for Conservation of Nature, if I'm not wrong. IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. But I will just have to have a look at it and tell, but more or less, this is the definition.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So you have different kinds of the names and the states that have been given, and the animals or the birds that are protected, and you have only limited human activity that can occur over there. So that, and that too only if is that human activity, whatever is there, is not interfering with the wildlife activities, that is the feeding, nesting, or breeding of the wildlife, so that the human beings cannot go there to kill, to cause any kind of danger or damage to the wildlife that is present over there. Yes, it can be privately owned as well. So you can see the sanctuary and the names. Some of them have been given over here. Kioladio Ghana Bird Sanctuary, Chilika Lake, Odisha. So you have the waterfowls, cranes, and ducks that are coming. This Ghana Bird Sanctuary, which is there in the Rajasthan, has Siberian crane coming over for immigration purposes. Then you have the Madhumalai, which is there for the elephants and the four-horned antelope. Nagarjun Sagar for tigers and panthers. Periyar for the elephants. There is an elephant orphanage also in Periyar Wildlife Sanctuary, in fact. And then you have the Balmiki Nagar tiger reserves. Then you have different kinds of biosphere reserves also. For all that, like your textbook has given a very detailed and information regarding the year where the sanctuary was established, and then at the same time the name and the state and the area that is present. So you can just have a look at it. Now let us have a look at the endangered species if it's possible. I don't exactly have. So you can just have a look at it and listen to the class. So endangered species are those. So yes, like I said, IUCN stands for International Union for Conservation of Nature. So you have different kinds of lists over there, which are this list has been which tells us about the status of the particular animal. For example, I do not know how many of you have heard, but there were animals which are known as dodo. Dodo got extinct. At the same time, the mammoth, the woolly mammoth is completely extinct. So you do not have any more woolly mammoths on the earth. The Indian cheetah is extinct. So all of these are those animals which are not, there is not one single individual on the face of the earth right now. So you have this conservation status of the animal, which states that whether depending upon the population of that particular animal or bird or plant for that matter, how much of it is left. So 50% of the world species are actually at a risk of extinction. Totally, around 199 countries have signed the biodiversity action plan so as to protect the endangered and the threatened species. So, and you also have something called as the species recovery plans. So you have different list basically created by the IUCN, which is known as the red list, which features around more than 3,000 animals and 2,000 change plant species which are critically endangered. So this list has extinct EX, extinct in the wild. So it is only present in zoos or other naturalized population, but not there in the wild anymore. Critically endangered, high risk of extinction. Endangered, risk of extinction in the near future. Vulnerable, again, it is having the risk of becoming endangered. Near threatened, because of the presence of human activities, it is threatened. Least concern, you do not have an immediate threat to its extinction. So they are not exactly qualified as threatened or near threatened. And you have the conservation dependent, for example, those animals which have to have efforts by the human beings so as to be able to live without having the threat of extinction. So this is the IUCN red list wherein the animals are categorized according to this particular criteria. Right? So examples of critically endangered species are the Asiatic lion. So you have all of that also again given in your textbook, page number 107. You can just have a look at it. And then examples of the endangered animals are the Mexican wolf, African penguin, wild dog, Iberian lynx, Indian pangolin, Japanese crane, so many of them for that matter. And the examples have been given in your textbook as well. So this is all about, and the examples for vulnerable ones are the macaw, then woodpecker, and American crocodile, dingo, crow, white-necked crow, all of these. Near threatened species are the American bison, the blue-billed duck, emperor goose, white rhinoceros. So this is one thing. And examples for the least concerned ones are, that means it is abundantly available everywhere. Such kind of an animals are the saltwater crocodile, the brown rats, the house mouse, and the pigeons. Then the freshwater crocodiles. All of these are not at the threat for extinction. So
Ma'am,
when, yes,
what is vulnerable?
vulnerable means it is, say for example, it is at the risk of becoming endangered. If we are
Okay.
not exactly taking care of that, there is a chance for that particular species to become extinct or endangered. Endangered, again, like I told you, is something wherein, there is a danger for it to become, the population to completely come down and become extinct. So you have least concern, then you have vulnerable, then you have endangered, then you have critically endangered, then you have extinct. This is the sequence. Is this point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Now we have something called as the biosphere reserves. We'll just have a look at it. And then we have the biodiversity hotspots that are present. So just give me 1 minute. I would like to take 5 more minutes of your time so that, I'll try to finish this particular topic, in fact. So please bear with me and, we'll try to finish it off. All right. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you. Just a second. So when it comes to the biodiversity of India, we get to see that it has all forms of earth that are like, all the life forms that we're talking about. So this term was coined by Walter and Rawson in the year 1985. Now again, what is the importance of a biodiversity and where it comes into play? 3 levels are there: species, genetic, and ecosystem or habitat. So species diversity is it defines or tells us about the different kinds of species in a given area. So around 2 lakh species of total, number of species that are there are present in India itself. And it peaks in the tropical forests and the coral reefs. Genetic is variation at the level of the individual genes, or whether a particular trait is heritable within that same population or within that different populations of organisms. So this is known as the genetic diversity. So again, more chances are there for variation to occur. This helps the animals to evolve. And when it comes to ecosystem or habitat diversity, ecosystem, again, we know that it's a structural and functional unit of the biosphere. So it is defined as aggregation of different habitats that are present, the different types of communities that are present, and the different kind of abiotic factors that are present in a particular area. Desert. So when you talk about a desert ecosystem or when you talk about an aquatic ecosystem, what is the kind of habitat over there, what are the different kinds of communities that are living in that particular ecosystem, and what are the abiotic factors that are influencing the ecosystem in that particular area. Desert, sunlight, less water, what are the different types of creatures that are present, all of this. So India is one of the richest ecosystem diversities. So you have deserts, plains, hills, mangroves, cold region, desert area, rainy forest, northeast India for that matter. And you have the plains, the Aravalli hills for that matter. You have the Nilgiri hills. all of this, the Deccan Plateau. So it is very rich in ecosystem diversity. We have around 18 hotspots of biodiversity that are there in the world, but we have two of them, which is the Eastern Himalayas and the Western Ghats. Eastern Himalayan range and the Western Ghats, that right from the Aravalli Hills to the Nilgiri Hills to the Kerala, all of it comes under the Western Ghats. Eastern Himalayas is beautiful. Again, you have the Uttarakhand, you have the like right from the Nepal region onwards. So it's like beautiful over there, especially for the plants. So you have 10 biogeographic regions in India. So the Trans-Himalayan, Himalayan, Indian desert area, then the semi-arid zones that are present, Western Ghats, Deccan Peninsula, the Gangetic Plain, Northeast India, the islands, the Andaman Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Islands, and you have the coastal region. So different. And then they help in that is the Western Ghats and the Eastern Himalayas help in identification of 25 of the world's biologically richest and threatened species or ecosystems that are present. So it goes, the Western Ghats extend up to Sri Lanka, and then Eastern Himalayas goes up to the India region, Burma region as well, a little bit of Nepal region also. So hotspots are those areas having higher concentration of the endemic species, that is the local species, and they can experience rapid rate of any kind of habitat fluctuation. So there is a risk for them. They are vulnerable against any kind of change in the environment because they are locally present in that particular area. So let us just have a look at it. When it comes to the importance of biodiversity, ecologically important, we all know that. And at the same time, food is we get food from the biodiversity areas, and it is a genetic resource. In fact, we get a lot of species endemic to that particular area. Then we have the ecological balance, again, aesthetic value, commercial value, recreation value, scientific value, all of these come under this particular areas, the importance of biodiversity. Please give me a moment. I will just I think I'll have to stop over here because I cannot further continue because of the time's up basically. So what I'll do is I'll continue in the next class. Another 2 minutes more. We'll just finish with this particular PowerPoint if possible. So Western Ghat, tremendous population. So you have pressure again, it extends up to the Sri Lanka. You have high demand for agriculture and timber. So losses because of deforestation and different kinds of human activities as usual. Eastern Himalayas, right from Pakistan to China to Bhutan, Bangladesh, Burma, and Burma, in fact. So you have the Mount Everest also in this particular area. So you have alluvial grasslands, subtropical levels, in fact, home for large number of birds, mammals, plants, flowering plants for that matter, rhinos, wild water buffaloes, the Asian rhino for that matter, all of this. So when it comes to the loss endemic species is the species that are present in that particular region because they are adapted to only those climatic conditions. They are not growing anywhere else. Their genetic pool is also only to that particular area. So few endemic species have been given over here, the names in fact. We'll just have a look at it in some time. Now right now you get to see that if there is a loss of biodiversity, what are the major causes of this loss? So it is land use intensification. That is, we try to build everywhere. Then climate change. It is a very big, factor. So as the temperatures is increasing, as there is a climate change, there is stress on the animals, whether it is heat stress or whether there is drought stress or whether there is rise in the sea level. All of it is stressful for the animal for it to adapt itself. And then you have pollutions. and then over exploitation of that particular area, or that for example overfishing, and then conflict. If at all there is war in that particular area, definitely there is loss in the habitat in that area. And if different species of animals come and stay in that, it is known as alien species coming and occupying that particular area, because of which that also causes stress to that there is a loss of biodiversity. Natural causes include destruction of habitat because of volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, fire, whatever. Climate change, we already know about that. Invasive species, or because of any kind of disease. Man-made, again, climate change, pollution, land, water, air, sea, whatever you talk, your habitat destruction, degradation, fragmentation of that, and then over-exploitation, that's overfishing, over-killing, whatever you know, name it. And you introduce a different species which is not present in that particular area into because of which there is a imbalance in the the biodiversity of that particular area. So this causes certain kinds of imbalances, like I told. So a Nile perch was one particular fish which was introduced into Lake Victoria, because of which almost nearly half of the original fish species that were present in that totally died. So this caused a lot of harm. So, and then human overpopulation, recreational hunting, collecting, fashion. We need fur. Some of, at least not us, but in the sense, their fur is fashion. So they kill the animals for that. Then medicinal or traditional method. So because of which rhino horns were taken out, and such kind of stuff with done. And tiger horns is taken. So puligoro, as you call it, has been taken out of the tigers after the tigers were killed. All of this is again medicinal or traditional method, demand. I'll just stop over here. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.